The billionaire Matteo De Luca put down his fork. The sound was sharp. Small. But enough to cut through the entire dining room. He pushed his chair back and stood up. Who made this dish? The question did not come in anger. It was worse, it came calmly. Conversations stopped one by one. Wine glasses froze midair. The maitre felt the blood drain from his face. At Il Verita, a man like Matteo De Luca did not stand up without reason, and he never asked questions out loud. No one then knew it yet, but that sentence had just changed the fate of everyone present. Il Verita was not just expensive. It was a place where silence carried weight. Where the glow of crystal chandeliers did not illuminate, it watched. Tables of fine wood reflected amber tones as guests spoke in low voices, not out of politeness, but hierarchy. No one came there to satisfy hunger. They came to confirm position. At the center of the room, at a reserved table with a privileged view, Matteo De Luca commanded the night without saying a word. Billionaire. Industrial magnate. A surname respected in Milan, Rome, and far beyond European borders. For him, dinners like that were simply routine, deals discussed between sips of aged wine and dishes too sophisticated to provoke any real emotion. Over time, food had lost its meaning and become fuel functional, without memory. While his guests talked about investments, acquisitions, and emerging markets, Matteo barely listened. His gaze drifted across the room with the boredom of someone who believed he had already seen everything. On the other side of that invisible hierarchy, the waitress Elena moved between the tables. She wore a simple uniform in light tones and maintained a restrained, almost calculated posture. She moved with the precision of someone who learned early that any mistake costs more when you are invisible. She had worked at Il Verita for months, arriving before sunrise and leaving long after the city slept, serving dishes she could never afford to people who rarely met her eyes. That night, the kitchen was operating under maximum pressure. Fully booked reservations. Customized orders. Demands whispered like commands. The billionaire's dish was the most expensive item on the menu, a slowly braised ossobuco, served with risotto al parmigiano, reinterpreted by award-winning chefs. Everything had to be perfect. The waitress checked the order. Confirmed the table number. Adjusted the presentation with absolute care. As she walked toward the center of the dining room, she felt something strange. As if the air had grown heavier. She ignored the feeling. She had learned early that emotions have no place in luxury restaurants. Elena served the dish in silence. Eyes lowered. Precise movements. And stepped away, as she always did. Matteo brought the fork to his mouth without attention, expecting nothing more than another forgettable flavor. But there was a pause. An almost imperceptible instant. The aroma did not match the menu description. There was an unexpected depth there. An old note. Something that did not belong in that place, nor in that life. His heart beat faster. Something that had not happened there in decades. For a brief moment, the dining room disappeared. In its place, another table. Another light. Another time. Childhood. That was when Matteo pushed the chair back and stood up. Who made this dish? And when the silence finally broke, no one there would be prepared for what was coming next. The billionaire remained standing. Not out of anger, but shock. The flavor was still there. Persistent. Untamed. Like something that refuses to be forgotten. He slowly brought his hand to his chest. His heart was beating harder, far too hard for that place. That was not normal. Not in that room. Not in that life. Nothing there had truly touched him in decades. Matteo looked at the dish again. It made no sense. Not in that restaurant. Not on that menu. Not in an existence built on emotional distance. He took a deep breath. And the entire room breathed with him. Questions like that, coming from Matteo De Luca, never ended well. For a brief moment, everyone believed it was fury. But it wasn't. The billionaire wasn't angry. He was shaken. Because that flavor did not belong to that restaurant. It belonged to his childhood. In the kitchen, silence turned into panic. The head chef felt sweat run down the back of his neck as he mentally retraced every step of the preparation. Assistants exchanged tense looks. A mistake there wouldn't cost just jobs, it would cost entire reputations. Check the ticket. Verify the ingredients. Nervous whispers crossed the room. No one wanted to be the name behind that dish. Have you ever felt something, a smell, a taste, a small detail, take you back to a part of your life you thought was lost? If that's ever happened to you, write memory in the comments. In the middle of that silent chaos, Elena took a step forward. Her heart pounded in her chest. She knew exactly what had happened. In the rush of service, the plates had been switched. The sophisticated ossobuco, signed off by award-winning chefs, was ready, flawless. But it had been delivered to the wrong table. The dish that Matteo De Luca had tasted did not exist on the menu. It should never have left the kitchen. It was something else. Something simple. Old. Something she had prepared for the staff. A dish made in a hurry, with whatever was available. No presentation. No signature. No pretension. Elena felt the weight of the choice before she even opened her mouth. Still, she lifted her gaze. "It was me, sir." Her voice came out low, but firm. A murmur rippled through the dining room. The waitress? The billionaire turned slowly. Every movement seemed to require effort. His eyes settled on Elena with absolute intensity. "You cooked this?" She nodded. "It wasn't meant to be served," she explained. "It was a dish I prepared in the kitchen, for the staff." The manager stepped forward, distressed. "Sir, I apologize, there was an operational error." Silence. The word fell heavy. Final. Matteo took another step toward Elena. "Where does this recipe come from?" She swallowed hard. "From my family," she answered. "It's an old dish, simple. My nana used to make it when I was a child." Something changed in Matteo's face. It wasn't irritation. It was worse. It was emotion. "That flavor," he murmured. "It's identical to what my mother used to make." He paused. The entire room held its breath. Identical. Elena's eyes burned. No one dared to breathe. Because everyone knew. That night had just crossed a point of no return. The silence remained. But it was no longer reverent. It was uncomfortable. Some guests exchanged quick glances. Others fiddled with their glasses, trying to regain control of the situation. That conversation had gone too far. In a restaurant like Il Verita, emotions were not welcome, especially not from a man everyone there was used to fearing, not listening to. One of the businessmen leaned slightly to the side, forcing a smile. "With all due respect, Matteo," he said, in a tone far too light to be innocent. "We're talking about a restaurant. Not a therapy session." A short laugh followed. Nervous. Restrained. Another guest joined in, as if seeking support. Elena felt the air shift. Matteo De Luca slowly turned his head. "That's exactly the problem," he replied. "You think it's just a restaurant." He placed his hand on the table once more. "You think food is status. That people are functions. That everything can be replaced." His eyes moved across the faces at the table. "That's how I lived for years." Some, visibly uncomfortable, looked away. Others kept smiling, now harder, tighter. One of them raised his glass. "Still," he said, "we're paying a lot for this experience." The words landed heavy. Elena felt her stomach tighten. Matteo didn't respond right away. He simply watched the man for a few seconds. "Paying," he repeated, finally. "Is that what you call it?" He made a brief gesture with his hand. "Then tell me, how much is a memory worth?" The man laughed, louder this time. Memories don't pay the bills. That was the moment something broke.
Matteo straightened his posture.
No, he said. But they reveal who you are when money can't fix anything anymore. The atmosphere at the table shifted completely. The maitre stepped forward, distressed.
Sir, perhaps we should take this conversation to a more private setting.
Matteo didn't turn around.
No, he said, dryly.
It's been hidden long enough. He turned back to Elena. How long have you worked here?
Months, she answered.
Every day.
And yet, Matteo continued,
no one ever asked your name. The silence returned. Heavier than before. One of the guests let out a short laugh. This is an exaggeration. She's just. He didn't finish the sentence.
Matteo raised his hand.
Just what?
The man cleared his throat, unsettled.
An employee. Matteo nodded slowly. Then let's treat tonight the way you usually treat people.
He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket. The gesture was small.
But everyone noticed. Elena felt her heart race. Matteo took out his wallet. Opened it. Bills appeared. A few. Then more.
He held the money for a moment, looking at the table, not at her.
If everything here is about value, he said calmly, let's be honest until the end. And then, in front of everyone, he let the money slip from his hand. The bills hit the marble with a dull sound. The same sound that, minutes earlier, no one would have dared to cause. Some guests widened their eyes. Others smiled. Because they still hadn't understood that this would not be the final humiliation. And that this time, the floor was not reserved for her. That same night, Matteo De Luca canceled every remaining commitment on his schedule. No calls were returned. No deals received attention. The restaurant closed early. The dining room, once filled with restrained laughter and calculated looks, slowly emptied in silence. When only a few tables remained under the soft glow of the chandeliers, Matteo did something no one there had ever seen him do. He sat down with Elena. Not as a billionaire. Not as a magnate. But as someone willing to listen. They talked for a long time about mothers. About nanas. About recipes that were never written down, but repeated through generations. About aromas capable of crossing time and restoring that sense of belonging the adult world insists on stealing. Elena spoke about how her grandmother cooked without haste, even when there was little. How she used to say that what is meant to last cannot be rushed. Matteo listened in silence, recognizing in every word fragments of a life he believed he had left behind. At that table, power had no place. Luxury had no place either. There was only memory. Days later, Matteo sought Elena out again. There was no formal meeting. No elaborate speeches. He went straight to the point, like someone who finally understands the weight of his own choices. He said he didn't want to open just another restaurant. He wanted to create a place where traditional Italian cooking would be treated as a living heritage, not as a sophisticated product emptied of meaning. A place where recipes wouldn't need to adapt to the market, but remain faithful to what they had always been. I want you to cook the way your nana cooked, he said. Without haste. Without concessions. Without needing to please anyone. Elena tried to answer. She couldn't. The tears came before the words. Not because of the opportunity itself, but because of the recognition it carried. Because of the rare feeling of being seen not as labor, but as the guardian of something greater. Months later, the place opened its doors. There was no excessive display. No empty performances meant to impress. The space was simple, welcoming, guided by deep aromas and silent stories revealed with every dish served. People didn't go there to be seen, they went to remember. To sit. To taste. To remain. Matteo began to frequent the restaurant often, but never as the owner. He preferred to observe, to ask questions, to learn how to wait.
Little by little, he discovered that he had spent his entire life mastering numbers, markets, and negotiations, but had never truly learned how to listen. He had conquered the world, accumulated enough power to cross borders without being announced. But it was there, in that space born from a shared memory, that he relearned how to feel. And it all began with a mistake. A swapped dish. A flavor that should never have been there. And a simple question capable of crossing luxury, time, and power. Who made this dish? Perhaps the greatest lesson of this story isn't in the dish, nor in the money, nor in the power. It lies in what almost always goes unnoticed. How many times does life place incredible people right in front of us, and we don't listen, don't ask, don't see? We rush through life, measuring value by status, position, or appearance, while entire stories walk silently beside us. Sometimes, all someone carries, talent, pain, memory, dignity, only needs a small space to exist. And when we truly learn to listen, we discover that what transforms destinies was never luxury. It was respect. And if you believe that no one is too small to be seen, subscribe to the channel and keep walking with stories that remind us of what truly matters.